Go. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? That's a lot of everybody's in there. Uh, oh, the chat's not letting me scroll all the way up, so I can't say hello to everybody who was in here. Um, what's up, Stephen Parsons? Shane Malone, Trail of Dust. I can't tell who's first. Ben Toomb. Uh, Double A Metalworks. What's up, Matthew? Um, Transcendental Artist Studios. Morning, Physicers. Shane Lalone and Eric Robert Whitney. Oh, that's not Roger T. What up? All right, now they're filtering in. How's everybody doing? What's up, Boar? Uh, this is a This is a much requested episode, so I hope everybody filters in. We've gotten more requests for this than anything else, so I don't know if y'all are going to be happy about that or not. Paul Orchard, how you doing? Uh, so as you all know, this is the Sunday morning gathering, the commonly called Blacksmiths Church, hosted on my YouTube channel every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern and other times if you live in other places. um, Here we talk about anything and everything blacksmithing or tinkering in a metal shop related. We also talk about life, love, and the pursuit of metal. Um, I like that. That's fun. uh, but moving in first, we'll go with the how was your week? What's up, Wayne? Um, so, who wants to go first? How was your week? Nobody
I'm
jump at
happy to go
once.
first.
There you go.
All right, so my week was busy and not long enough. I started off the week with a deadline. As everyone knows, I had to. I'm working on the practical blacksmithing series, so I finally got book 4 finished, and so getting that prepared for Amazon and all that type of thing. So there was that. Also had my work Christmas party on Wednesday, which kind of threw out the end of the week because I went and had a few adult beverages and then didn't finish having adult beverages until 2:30, 3 o'clock the next morning. And I actually, because I live out of town, I live about, it's about 70 kilometers out of town, 80 kilometers out of town, which is about 45 to 50 miles out of town. So rather than run the gauntlet of police and also risking, other people's and my own lives by driving whilst intoxicated, I decided to get a hotel room. So that was nice. It was nice to just go out and unfortunately spouses and my work spouses aren't invited to the Christmas party. So went out, had a lot to drink, went back to the hotel room, passed out, and then got about 5.5 hours sleep before I had to get up and check out, which was a bit of a pain, but it is what it is. Then I finished up the book. Also helped my dad do some stuff for his veranda again. Luckily, that's nearly finished. So, and also had to fix my ride-on mower because last time I used it, I was just about finished mowing my lawn, and I blew the bearings in the spindle for the mower blade. So, had to get a new mower spindle and reattach that. So, a little bit of amateur mechanics this week. But so one of them half, getting stuff done, but productive, but not very productive weeks. Luckily now most of that major stuff or finicky stuff is done. So over the coming weeks, I can focus on things that I need to get done that I've kind of been putting off because we've also been having a heat wave here. So rather than the regular, it's usually around about 30 degrees, including 80 odd percent, 90 odd percent humidity here. And that's of course in Celsius, not in freedom units. 30 degrees is about 95-ish freedom units, I think. It's been up around 40. So I think that's about 110. So it's been ridiculously hot. and ridiculously humid. That 80 to 90% humidity has been maintained whilst being stupidly hot and sitting around 40 degrees Celsius. So yeah, it's been like walking out into a blast furnace every day, going outside. So trying to get stuff done first thing in the morning, because if you're trying to get things done after lunchtime, it's actually we for the first time ever the Northern Territory has actually had a statewide health warning regarding the heat, because it can really affect people getting overheated and stuff like that. So maintaining your water intake and being aware of your body is something that's been very much pertinent up here. Now, on top of that, and part of the reason for one of the topics today is also found out this week that a friend of mine, not a close friend, but a friend of mine, and the reason why I actually met my best friend going back 16, 17, 18 years ago. Unfortunately, she was found this week. Unfortunately, she is no longer with us. So, and there was a multitude of reasons for that, but and I won't mention names because
Privacy.
Privacy reasons and stuff like that. But I thought particularly with being this time of year, everyone knows that the holiday seasons can be a bit hard on people, for a variety of reasons. It's a very stressful time, but I thought it was a good opportunity to just have a bit of chat and reach out and make sure that that you're looking after, because of course physical health, Yum covered PPE the other week, and that kind of goes over physical health, but it's been a minute since we've talked about mental well-being and stuff like that. So I thought particularly it's a pertinent time coming up to the holidays. I know holidays can be a tough time for me. Me personally, it always seems as though and this is a little bit insight into how my brain ticks, but throughout my lifetime, it's always been around this time of year, leading up to this time of year, where I lose people that are closest to me. So this is very much a time of reflection for me. My grandfather died 2 days before Christmas back in 1994. 2014, my grandmother died 3 days. His wife, my grandmother, died 3 days before Christmas. So being that this is the time for reflection for me, and also for me it's a time to value life and value the people that are around me, and that includes all of you. So I wanted to reach out and make sure that you are all okay, and I know Are You Okay days earlier on in the year, but just wanted to make sure that reach out and say I'm here, send me a message, send me an email, whatnot. If you want to have a chat about things, reach out. So yeah, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. And of course, I'm also, speaking of my best friend, I want to shout out to his dad, which is kind of like a second dad to me, who's been in the hospital this week due to he unfortunately had a stroke. So he's in my thoughts, and also I know that he's, and I say this in inverted commas, he's okay, because of course after something like that, that's you're not exactly okay, but I know he's got his sense of humor, and he's got the rest of his loved ones around him, being his son, and all that type of thing as well. So it's been a tough week for me, particularly on the mental front and whatnot. But it's all going to be okay, as long as one foot in front of the other and one day at a time, and always going to come out on the other side. So but yeah, that's pretty much sums up the roller coaster of my week. And for those of you that saying you like to have a drink me and that type of thing, so cheers to that. That's a Bundaberg Dark and Stormy, the Bundaberg and dry ginger ale. So, Bundaberg and ginger beer. Sorry, not dry ginger ale, Bundaberg and ginger beer. Cheers to you, and crack on with Happy Yule to everyone, because it's coming up.
Yep.
Sully,
10
over to you.
days. Hello, real quick. Hello to Dylan Corwin and Burnt Mushroom Blacksmithing. Burnt Mushroom says he might reach out. It's hard to talk to strangers. I feel what he said. Can't stay long, but hope everyone here has a good day and a bit of peace during this season. Amen. There you go. But yes, sorry.
Yeah, the way to just trash my intro. I see how it is.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, my week. Okay, so like on a normal description, Sunday, my week was pretty tame. Had 3 days off. I got 75 hours. I mean, it wasn't particularly difficult or anything like that. I mean, just normal stuff. Other than the fact that I worked day shift all week until last night, and man, I've been on night shift for so long that when they put me on days, it is a struggle. I mean, I just, I mean, I don't know. I'm used to being up until, like noon and then going to sleep for 4 hours and getting up and going to work. But, um, that freaking backwards. But anyways, yeah, I, I mean, kind of like we were touching on the mental health thing. Like I've had a really tough week, and just like up here. I mean, it's all in my head. I mean, most of you guys know my situation, and so like this week I've been particularly struggling, not with depression so much, uh, but anxiety and dysphoria. And I mean, it's really been difficult to get out of my head, and just sitting around all day thinking I'm not good enough, thinking that I could have done better, thinking I didn't do it. I mean, it's just this downward cycle of self depreciation that or self deprecation. That's the word. That just goes on in my head uncontrollably that I can't seem to stop, and until it just stops. And I don't know what to do about it, but I mean, I see a therapist once a month. I should probably see him more often, but what can you do? So, I mean, so we kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit because that's something that's really been affecting my, not just my mood, but my performance overall. I mean, like at work. I mean, like I've noticed that, I'm just kind of like blah, that's an easy way to put it, I guess, because I'm just not my usual chipper self. And, yeah, I don't know. I called on Monday and got my prescription for anti-anxiety, antidepressant stuff reinstated. I have been off of them for 7 months, and the reason that I quit that was because I was just happy all the time, all the time. I mean, once I started HRT and all that, I was just like, I am living the best life ever. And then I thought, wait, what if it's the medication, the antidepressants that make me um, happy all the time? And yeah, turns out it was. I after 7 months without the Wellbutrin or whatever, every day is this roller coaster of happy, sad, depressed, happy, sad, mediocre. I mean, it's like enough already. So give me my pills back. I'm just gonna be happy all the time because that's fun for everybody. So that
Yeah.
was my week in a nutshell. Yeah, mental struggles and just trying to survive and uh, get it going on. What about you, Yamez? How was your week?
As per the usual, coming up on the holidays, busy, busy, busy. We, as any of the long followers of the, I got you guys. As any of the long followers of the show know, I have cyclical work cycle, busy, 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 then nothing for blah blah blah. That hasn't really, it's been busy. And we had about a week where it's like it was supposed to be busy and then not busy. But we're back to the push before our holiday break, and it's just not stopping. Uh, this morning, I accidentally put hot sauce in my coffee, and I just grabbed a second cup and decided to put hot sauce in it again. So I don't know where my mind is. Um, you know, uh, I don't want to jump on, like we're talking about mental health and everything. Um, I deal with my own personal stresses a little bit different than most other people. I don't talk about them a lot because I don't want to say they're personal, but everybody's personal stresses are personal. Um, but one way that I cope is I understand where my stresses come from and where my the downward spiral, so to speak, comes from. and mentally I know where it comes from. And when it hits hard. And I know, like, you won't, even my closest friends don't really hear me complain about it too much, because I understand that there are people out there with more struggles than me that are maintaining. So I have to maintain for them as well. Not for them, but like, yeah. So like, I apologized to some of my friends this morning, like, hey, I'm sorry, I haven't been chatty a lot lately. And what that's from is, it's like, what? I can't get off the couch. I'm working, working, working. I try to get out to the shop, and it's just like, I've got a laundry list of things to do, and it's just not happening. So, uh, um, yeah.
So,
Oh.
yeah, Paul asked if I was wearing my pajamas. Yes, I am, because on any given Sunday, I start this process about 7 o'clock in the morning. We go live at 9 my time, and I got to pick out the perfect freaking outfit, and then figure out everything that goes with it and all that. And today I'm just like looking through my. This is my closet right here. It's not really a closet. It's just a rack in my room where I hang clothes. And today I'm just like, because I got in at 5 o'clock this morning after working since 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and I was like, you know what? Now, I took a shower, got cleaned up, moisturized, exfoliate, all that stuff, and I just like, screw it. I'm putting my pajamas on because I'm going straight to bed after the show. So, yep, wearing pajamas. And I wanted to mention there, Yamez, about you were talking about how like you get closed up or whatever when when you're struggling in your head, and I'm usually the opposite. Like,
Hmm.
I will recognize that I'm going down a rabbit hole. Like, my brain starts doing this downward spiral of thought, and I recognize it immediately. And I like put my feelers out. Like, I text my daughter, I've got like a list of 5 people that go in a priority list. It's like they can talk to me, because in that situation, I usually need a voice phone call. And then, like, and it doesn't, we don't have to talk about what's bothering me. We can talk about anything under the sun. It doesn't matter, and it just completely takes my mind off of it. It stops the downward spiral, and I get off the phone and I'm like, ah, okay, I'm cool. And this last week, I was specifically, no, I don't want to call anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. Which is weird. I've never been there before where I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. I just wanted to, I don't know. That was pretty weird. But yeah, this is the first time I'd ever gotten to a spot where I didn't. I recognized that I had a problem. I recognized that I was going in a bad direction, and I also recognized that I didn't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
And that was weird for me.
Yeah. It's that's
You know me, I'm a chatty bitch.
yeah, yeah. And here's the thing, like, with me, I lose motivation, and that's the best I can describe it. It's like, I used to get, and I really, it's an uncomfortable topic for me, because I don't like talking about myself like that. But, you know, in the interest of full disclosure for this specific section of the topic, and just so you guys know, we will touch on Viking Steel. I know a lot of you guys are here specifically for Viking Steel, and could give two craps about our emotional states. um, uh, I used to get, like, severe depression runs in my family, and I used to get suicidally depressed, and I've had a handle on that for a decade now. A few moments after Irma and everything, it was real bad, but uh, I've got a handle on it, and I recognize, like you said, Sully, that you can recognize when that kind of imbalance is kind of happening. And what I do is, I kind of just I describe it best as my motivation and drive just bottoms. I go into essentially autopilot where it's like I get up, go to work, do my thing, and I can compartmentalize. I can differentiate, compartmentalize, whatever that word is, however you pronounce it.
Compartmentalize.
Compartmentalize work and everything. I go to work and I'm still fairly effective at work, and then I get home and uh, you know the grin leaves my face, and just boom, like, all right, I'm gonna sit here and watch YouTube videos or play a game or put on a movie series and or a TV series and just power through that till it's done. Not even thinking, because the motivation isn't there, that the cure is in my shop, you know, get out there and get out of my head, you know. But the actual motivation to get up and go do something is just flatlined. That's the symptom for me, you know.
Mm.
So, and I'm sure it's different for everybody else. Um, you know, but it is what it is. Admittedly, that's why some of my Sunday live stream shows have been kind of, I like to call them phoned in shows, where it's like I just grab a random thing and just beat on steel for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then until it's done. But
Well,
yeah.
honestly, the forging shows are more about the conversation that
Mhm.
we're having with each other in there than it. I mean, like half the people in the chat don't even know what the hell you're doing.
I know, right? But I
It's
will.
like
And look,
somebody says bacon, and then I mean, like there's a half-hour chat about bacon, and it's like, wait, Yamas is done? Ah,
Yeah.
this is
and
crap. We're not done talking about bacon.
Hmm.
that's another thing. And I think that's something I've had to, like, me personally, with I've had to really face the fact that people think motivation comes first, and this is a topic I've had discussions with a lot of good friends of mine, and some that other people in the chat and stuff would know. But motivation actually comes second. Once you get moving and you start something, particularly, I know particularly people that are attracted to blacksmithing are very, very commonly neurodivergent. And not saying autistic or ADD or anything like that, but there's a very high likelihood that those people involved in blacksmithing are neurodivergent. And motivation comes second to action. If you get dressed, and particularly, as an old adage, but make your bed. So as to lie in it. But the point of that is, if you get up and you do the thing first, or start the thing first, get up, get dressed, get ready for the day, that starts you down the path, and then motivation comes. I personally find that I find it really hard to get started on something, but once I actually start something, I am very reluctant to put it down, because it's kind of like, I want to get this done. I want to get this done. I want to get this finished. And so, that's one thing about, and that's a coping mechanism I've got, not only for, the times where I feel flat, depressed, or whatever, but also, when I'm, when other things are happening in my life, it's one of those, I'll make a start on something, so it kind of forces me to get my mind off other things as well. Now, I've got a lot of coping mechanisms for a lot of different things, and blacksmithing is definitely for me. And again, a lot of people in the chat, it's a coping mechanism for some of the things that we've got going on in our life. So, if and that's I know people who do live streams simply because, and that's not just in the blacksmithing sphere. I've got friends that are gamers and stuff like that who do that because it's a way to combat the mental health thing as well. They might be feeling flat and they start playing a game, and I go, oh, I'll go live, or I'll join into a live, maybe not live streaming, but they'll join into a live game. They'll go into an MMO, because that's people to talk to. It's people that gets them out of their own cycle of internal chat. Internal chat to that once you get on a negative feedback loop, that's the thing. One of the things, like many years ago, and this is something that that might help other people out there. I used to be really in my early 20s. I had a very bad case of depression, and like Yamez, I find it very hard to talk to people, or used to find it very hard to talk to people, because I was of the impression, and I still am, that I'm bad, but other people are worse off than me. I can make it. I always make it through. And then one of my very common comments is I'll always make it. You know, I'll always be there tomorrow. I'll always get through. This is only temporary, and it's true. And it's and that's one of my healthy things. You know, is this situation is only temporary. It will always get better, and it does. But one of the things that I used to have a very poor body image of myself, and I used to have a lot of dark thoughts and stuff like that. So one of the things I actually started to do many years ago, I don't do it anymore because I don't need to, but I used to stand in front of the mirror every morning and say 5 good things about myself. And it's very hard to do because you're looking, but I spoke to the person in the mirror as though it was someone else. You know, if I was approaching someone and I had to give them a compliment, what would I say to that person that I was standing in front of? Now, this person looked exactly like me, but reversed. So it could have been my twin. So, and that's how I approached it. And after a while, that helped me, you know, start to think about myself in a more positive manner, which of course improved my my view of myself and stuff like that. And that was a coping mechanism that I did. You know, and then and of course, you know, finding the coping mechanisms, particularly if you're having a hard time, is something very important, because you know, you might only need that coping mechanism for a short time, but if that helps you get through the day, the month, the week, whatnot, to get to just around, you know, people always say, you know, good things are just around the corner, and you don't, a lot of sometimes, particularly when things are dark, you don't know how you're going to get to the corner. You know, it's kind of like, okay, good things might be just around the corner, but I don't have the energy to get to the corner, or I don't have the ability to get to the corner, you know. So finding those little coping mechanisms are sometimes the thing that helps you get to the corner, you know, even though we can't see it. So, and be that, if you need to talk to someone, go see a therapist. Go talk to, you know, all around the world there's helplines and stuff like that. You know, if maybe it's issues with addiction, and addiction is a mental health thing, in my personal opinion. You know, talk to someone, you know. Yeah, we all drink, but some people, you know, do it in moderation. Some people do it all the time. But you know, go talk to Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, you don't even need to have to go to an AA meeting. Talk to someone. You know, talk to a doctor. You know, there's the Hippocratic oath that prevents them. You know, make sure that they do no harm, and that also. You know, they also have some training, some limited training, to listen to your mental health things, so that they can recommend, you know, going to see a therapist or something. These things are important, you know. And for those people that are watching, and for those people that are listening, I want you to know, absolutely, from the deepest recesses of my heart, I was going to say deepest pits of my soul, but it's pretty dark in there. You're important to me. You know, I might not know you personally, right? But you're listening, you're watching, you know, you're interacting with us on a weekly basis. You know, you enrich this community, not just by being here. You might not think that you've got anything to add. You know, you might think, oh, I only ask stupid questions or whatever, right? And that can sometimes be a bit self-depreciating, but that question might need to be asked, because you ask that question, and someone in the community, either us or someone that runs some of the guys that run the other podcasts or other YouTube channels and stuff like that, they might give you an answer, but that might have helped someone that's just starting out, that doesn't or didn't have the confidence to answer that question. So you're important as well. Okay, I just want to let you know, you are important. You're important to me. You're important to us. We care about you. We might not know you, but you know, we do care about you. So on that note, probably want to jump to some of the stuff in the chat. I've seen it moving, but I went off a little bit of a run there. So.
Hold on. I was just kind of curious. I stuck on a point that you said a little bit earlier about looking at yourself in the mirror and saying 5 good things about yourself. How did you find that, as far as effectiveness goes, in the long run?
in the long run, it's been great. It's very hard to do, and the thing about it was when I first started, and I've had a few friends over the years with some mental health challenges that I've had do the same thing. For the first month, it fucking sucks. And sorry about my language, but it really, really sucks, because when you're in that mindset, it's hard to find a good thing to say. First of all, you've got to get your head around the fact that, okay, I'm talking to the person in the mirror, but trying to find something nice to say about yourself really is tough. After that first month, though, and after you get into the swing of it and you start looking, and it can be as little as, I really like your eyebrows today, you've got great teeth or something like that. And my teeth used yeah, exactly. My teeth used to be horrible. I've sent the Amazon that a couple of photos how my teeth used to look. I look like a crack addict, and I've never done that drug in my life. Like they were rotten and horrible. Unfortunately, that's just genetics. But back then, I had bad teeth as well. So I used to. So even finding the strength to say, I like your, though I don't like your teeth, I like your smile. And that wasn't a I like, but that was the thing about talking to yourself in the mirror is facing yourself and saying the positive, even though you can say things, 100 bad things a day, right? But and everyone knows if you go out in the street and a lady or a guy comes up and goes, hey, you look really nice today, you end up smiling for the rest of the day because someone's noticed you and someone says you look really nice. Even though, that voice in the back of your head might be going, you suck, you look like crap, all that type of shit thing. That person meant something to you. So, and that was, you can say 1,001 things negative about yourself, but trying to find that positive, those couple of positive things every day for the first month is really tough. But over the long run, and I did it for about 2 years, near on every day for about 2 years. And it got to the point where I could look at myself and go, you know what? Okay, I've got some things to fix. And it took me up until about 5 years ago to get my teeth fixed. But, I knew I had some things to fix, but I could look at myself and go, you know what? Overall, I'm not that bad a person. I'm not that bad looking. I'm not horrible. There are 1,000 people out there that, 1 million people out there that are worse than me. I'm pretty okay, and it got me to thinking, as long as I work towards improving myself to who I want to be, then I'm not everything is lost. And so in the short term it was really tough. Over the long term, I am a firm believer and it's a good thing, but it is very hard. It's not easy to start.
Well,
Right.
Well, that was a really long answer, but quite all right. The reason I asked was my therapist told me last month. It's like, because I was struggling last month. I was struggling really hard with imposter syndrome, and and that is very difficult, and especially when you're hard on yourself like that. And so my therapist told me is like, every day I want you to look in the mirror and say, tell your reflection that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are worthy of love. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. And he's like, yes, you can. I was like, no, I can't. I mean, I can do it, but I don't believe myself because I know I know I'm just lying. I know none of that shit's true. Whatever. I mean, and so I've really struggled with that because, like, literally, I feel like I'm lying to myself when I try that. And I mean, it almost seems like it's not worth the effort. So I'm, maybe I should try a little harder. I don't know.
I will say this. Part
That's
of
all I
my,
got.
yeah. No, you are. You should be able to do that fine. You are super valued, and an important part of several people's lives. But one thing that I do, I have like several mantras, uh, and it's not so much that I'll sit there and just repeat them and repeat them and repeat them, because uh, although that's what you do with a mantra, it's just something less the mantra is more of a frame of thought. And I put it in the chat earlier. And it's something that because me, and I know me, and I know my mindsets are very cyclical. It's actually, if any of you guys remember those 5 things videos that went about a couple years ago, I have since taken mine down. Um, but one of the lesser known things about me, and I suppose I can go ahead and say it. Uh, it's not something I talk about publicly. If you meet me, do not come up and discuss it with me. It's just whatever. I have both Asperger's and cyclothematic disorder. And so with the cyclothematic disorder, it's think bipolar, but to a softer degree where uh, you get these cycles. And whereas with bipolar, it could be daily, you know, um, and with cyclothematic, it can last weeks, where I'm sure you guys have noticed I'll be like super manic and all over the place, or I'll just be kind of lethargic depending on the time. And so that's where that is with me. Um, Good morning, big dog. Merry Christmas. Love you, man. So it's like with that knowledge, and I've lived with this, for years, for decades, and I've kind of worked on myself, with what works for me uh, for years. And the one thing that I always tell myself, you know, is come what may, this too shall pass. And it's more than just a clever song lyric from OK Go. It's an actual thing. It's uh to go on that cliche of life is a roller coaster, and blah blah blah. It has its ups, its downs, and whatever. When it's down, like, hey, you know what? This will pass. This downside, like really got me through. With the, Irma and losing, my home and my community and everything that made me me. You know, really, really, really messed with me, um, to the point where there are large chunks of my life that I can't remember, kind of mess with me. And getting through that was, you know what? This sucks. This is me now. This is not me then. This is not me in the future. This is the me now. And come what may, this too shall pass, and the me later will not be the me now. You know. So yeah, it's while I can't look in a mirror and tell myself 5 good things about me, it's not for the same reasons as Alex there, where I don't believe them. It's that I've tried that, and for me, it doesn't really help me because the issue isn't for me. I don't believe I'm good enough. It When I'm in my cycle there, or when I'm in my down cycle or my downtrend, as I call it, there is no reason. There is no underlying thing. It just happens. And then I grasp at reasons. I
When
start thinking about negative things.
when you're on your man period.
Yeah. I start grasping for, like I'll be sad for some reason, you know, brain imbalance. And I will find reasons to justify in my head why that's the case. Or I'll be in a negative mindset and I'll think of negative things. And partially helps me, partially hurts me, knowing that, what, no matter what I do, once I start the uptrend, none of it matters. I'll be manic and happy and I'll be productive and I'll be like, yeah, rocking, rocking, rocking. You know what I mean? And it's just that's the way my head works. So
And I just also want to say to those people listening and watching that the coping mechanisms that we mention won't work for everyone because everyone's different. I mentioned the talking in the mirror because that was a technique that worked for me. Hey,
it works for
give
a
it a
lot of
try.
people. It's a valid thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but it may not work for you, and that's okay. I also want to let everyone know that when you're in a down period and I've said this to Yames, and I know you remember because it's part of the reason why we changed your live streaming date. It's okay not to be okay sometimes too. It's okay to go, this really sucks the situation I'm in, and sometimes it's just a matter of finding a way around it and finding a change to make that will help improve your situation. It doesn't have to fix it, we just have to make it a little bit more tolerable.
Switching days for my live streams reinvigorated me, and switching formats for a lot of what we do here on the channel has really re-upped my drive for long-term drive. And 100% Alex and Adam here have, you viewers may not realize it, but they really saved the show. They really saved the channel. I behind the scenes, I was at a point where I was just gonna, close the channel, archive it, done with it, and we thankfully, we discussed things and, kind of shifted gears and turned this into, instead of it being all on my shoulders, now I'm fighting back faces here. Keep this face good. Instead of it being all on my shoulders, with the two of them, with the two of you guys, I'll speak straight to you guys. With the two of you guys, the load is not as heavy. The burden is not as troublesome. It really isn't. Like, you guys have zero idea, or I'm sure you do, but like, you don't have any idea how much it means to me that you guys have, popped up here, and to the audience, to the community. It's like, I know right now I only have 16 viewers. I know my average for Sundays are 15 to 20, topping off at 25. I know I'm not a big channel. I know I don't have a huge following, but I like to think we have a loyal following. I know you guys are here, and I know that when you guys aren't here, it's for a good reason, or I cannot expect everybody to be here all the time, because life, so
I can. You'd better all be here all the time.
so the support that we do have is 100% appreciated, and it's I know this title over here says Viking steel. We'll get to that. I believe we've got a little written thing, and Sully's got
one more thing. Adam, do you remember those old console TVs that were like, I don't know, 8 feet wide, 3 feet tall, had a TV in them, made out of wood and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so a Roku device is something that you can take a Phillips screwdriver and plug into the antenna connections onto the back of that old sumbitch and make it play streaming services. So that's a Roku. It makes an old TV almost as good as a new TV, only without the right operating system.
Right. Okay. Never heard of one. I was gonna say I know what an old tube TV is. We actually have to physically go up and turn the dial and all, because I had one. Like, I basically used one for, I'd probably say, until about 2015. Right. So, like, it was an
Love
old
your hubs,
DVD.
Yeah. When I was a kid, we had, I don't know, probably over the course of my life, 3 of those, and they never worked, but we used them as a stand for the other TV.
Yeah, everybody does.
Mine worked. I played my first generation Xbox on one of those. Like, it was, you click it through until you get to the AV channel, and
3-4. 3-4.
That was it. So so on to Viking Steel. When it comes to mental health, guys, make sure that talk to someone, talk to us, reach out to a friend. It's okay to not be okay. But let's get on to Viking steel now. Being the designated, and not self-designated, but a designated historian in this
No,
channel,
you are
it falls to me to discuss this topic. Now, before we go much further, I wish to clarify just a few things first. First of all, Vikings were not a people. Vikings was an occupation. To go a Viking Vikings were the early, basically between the 600 AD to the 1100 AD equivalent of a pirate.
Yeah.
They would literally get on a boat during it was generally towards either before the planting or after the harvest, or even during the middle of the year when the plants were actually growing and maintenance wasn't that bad. They would get on a ship, go either around the coast of their nations or across an ocean, and raid and pirate and attack other places for their goods. To go a Viking.
Goods and
the Vikings
services.
were not a people, and goods and services. Vikings were not a people, and they would catch slaves and take them around and trade and all that type of thing.
Like
it was also
services.
trading. Yeah. Now, the Vikings, better known as the Nordic and Scandinavian peoples, were farmers. They were blacksmiths. They were carpenters. They were boat builders, which fall under carpentry. They were traders, and they were fantastic at navigation. It has been proven that the Scandinavian and Nordic peoples were all the way to the Middle East during that period. Now, getting on to the topic of, and I'm going to do this in inverted commas, Viking steel. Vikings could make steel. Actually, Vikings were actually had access to what's known as bog iron, and I know we've covered bog iron on the show before, and it's a very, very pure form of iron. Now, the Vikings were very, very, or the Nordic peoples were very, I'm just going to use the term Vikings because everyone knows it, but they're very well documented here that Vikings were not a people. But the Nordic and Scandinavian peoples were very proficient in the use of bog iron in making, their weapons and all sorts of things. However, they also knew how to make blister steel, but it is also well documented that the Nordic peoples may have discovered the use of steel by accident, right? And by ritualistic blacksmithing purposes, much like the Japanese doing ritualized blacksmithing. However, by trying to infuse spirits into their weapons, into their swords and their axes and stuff like that. Now, we all know magic swords like Excalibur, what's his name? Matsumoto swords from Japan. Joyeuse is another version of a magical sword. There is also I believe it's either Mexican or South American, might be even Chilean sword that's got a name that was owned by a general that helped liberate them. It's a saber. I'm not 100% sure. Where's Edward when you need him? Eduardo. Can't do that role like you, Yamas. But yeah, that's it. But there's a lot of name swords out there, and magical swords go back a long time. But like I said, there is speculation and documentation that the Vikings may have discovered steel through trying to imbue their swords with magical properties or the spirits of their ancestors, and they did this by packing bone and other animal products or human products around the steel, whilst trying to heat it up and to get those properties into the steel. Now, that, of course, we all know is case hardening. So they were making a very shallow version of steel to begin with via case hardening in the process of trying to make imbue their weapons with spirits. Now, of course, there are some magical there is at least one magical weapon in the sagas that I'm aware of. and that is so it's not exactly in the sagas, but it's in Beowulf, which doesn't exactly count as the sagas. But anyway, but that is a magical weapon. Now, apart from the weapons that the gods wield, of course. Now, further from that, and I know there is one of our subscribers, of course, which Shane Lalonde is, of course, named his forge after Ulfbert, which is a very well-known series of swords. It's not just one; there's several of them. I think there's something like 11 actually verified Ulfbert swords. Being that they are made in the same style and presumably by the same smith or group of smiths. But there are hundreds of fakes. Now, the Ulfbert sword, from the metallurgy that they've actually done on those swords, or the Ulfbert swords, I should say, actually there's two lines of thought. First of all, that was the period where the Ulfbert sword was made was actually 800 years before they have any proof of smelting steel in Scandinavia, in Northern Europe. There's no proof of smelting steel of that quality or that ability in that part of Europe at the time. That's not to say it didn't happen. All right. But the Ulfberts are generally accepted to have been made of a crucible steel. However, at that period of time, the Nordic and Scandinavian peoples were known to have been trading in the Middle East. There are actually discovered and well documented and archaeological tombs of Viking mercenaries and traders in the Middle East. Basically their burial mounds, as they would have had in Europe, found in the Middle East that contain Nordic and Scandinavian peoples. And it's proved, and it's also documented because, of course, those in the Middle East at the time, that was pretty much during the golden age of Islam, and they recorded lots of things. They've got records of Northmen or Norsemen, Scandinavian and Nordic peoples traveling and trading in the Middle East. They took rivers and lakes and all that type of thing and in the seas and sailed their long ships and with the flat bottoms all the way down. And that's the steel that is in the Ulfbert's swords and many high quality weapons and jewelry at the time made of steel matches the crucible steel that was produced in and around the Middle East, including where we get the name for Damascus, being the city of Damascus. They were trading with those people at the time, which is why the Ulfberts are generally considered to be made of Damascus steel, proper actual Damascus steel. Now, so that's my introduction to Viking steel. Needless to say, there's no such thing. Sure, steel was made by the Vikings in the case hardening process. Small amounts of steel, just like is made in the Japanese process of tagahamane, by smelting down the bog iron and working the bog iron, would have turned it into steel by being wrought, by being folded, by being, but crucible steel in the purities that it was made. The Indians and the Middle Easterns knew the technology, the Northern Africans, all that type of thing, and it slowly migrated over the course of hundreds of years into Europe. And of course, that's how it moved into the Middle East as well. It traveled with the smiths that knew the knowledge from, because as we discussed with the with carbon and steel, a few weeks ago, the earliest making of steel was in, the Indus Valley in India, and there's certain other cultures that had the uses of steel, and it spread out from 3000 BC. It took thousands of years for that knowledge and that ability for the use of steel and iron to spread out across the face of the globe. Now, you know, but if you can't make something, and it's true even today, if you can't make something but you can trade for it, we will trade for it until we learn the ability to make it for ourselves, you know. Not one of us started with innate knowledge of how to do blacksmithing. So, you know, we've you know, up until the point where we started, think about, you know, if you needed, for example, a knife, you know, you don't inherently know how to make a knife, so you buy it, you trade your time and goods and whatnot to buy a knife. Now, you know, those of you that have the ability to make a knife, you'll go, well, why would I buy one when I can make one? It's cheaper, it's more practical, I know it's going to be better, all that type of stuff. It's the same throughout history. If you couldn't make something, you would trade for it, you would buy it. It's the same with steel. Steel back then was also it's like gold and like silver. It at the time was a value piece. A sword, particularly, right, and this is true of the Ulfbert swords, but of any iron sword, was a status symbol. You know, the reason why we have the images of the Vikings fighting with spears and axes is because that's what they did. You know, it was shield, an axe and shield, or an axe and spear. Those weapons were cheap to produce, and they used very little iron and steel. A sword, on the other hand, as those of you would know, is primarily made up of iron and steel. It is a lot of iron and steel to put into a weapon. Out of one sword, you might get up to, you know, 4 or 5 spears worth. You know, so you can arm 4 or 5 people, or you can have that one weapon that's only effective close hand to hand in close combat. You know, you can't throw it like a spear, you can't use it at long range. It is for up close and personal fighting. So that's a status symbol. That's for someone that either would expect to be up close and personal fighting, or would only fight in a situation where it's up close and personal. Both of which can generally be attributed to lords or kings and stuff like that. So a sword was a status symbol. It was a very, very expensive piece of useful jewelry. So and so that's another reason why, you know, why they could go and buy it. You know, you take the gold or the whatever, you know, jewels and whatnot, and they would travel to somewhere where they had this steel, and they would buy it from the traders, and then it would, you know, and you've got to factor that into the equation as well. So you've got this steel come from so far away because it's so hard to make and they can't make it locally, you know, so that value goes up as with that distance as well. So having a fully steel sword was something at that period was a very big status thing, you know, which is why, again, particularly with Ulfbert, like I said, I think it's 11 confirmed actual genuine Ulfberts. Now, if this was a master smith in the Nordic and Scandinavian areas, you know, that Ulfberg being his signature, you know, that's a status symbol that the kings and the high lords would have had. You know, I have an Ulfberg that's made from steel that was, you know, that's from the Middle East, you know, and he would have charged a premium. You probably found he might have been relatively wealthy, or he could have been the kingsmith and he wasn't exactly wealthy, and that king gave out those swords to his trusted peoples. But yeah, so I've kind of like two kind of rants here in the sense of I want people to remember that Vikings were not a people, that was an occupation, and that included rape and pillaging and slavery, but it also led to who we are today. And I say that in the sense of William the Conqueror literally conquered England. It's a reason why most people of British descent are Anglo-Saxon, because the Angles were there already, and the Saxon came from Saxony, which was the Nordic peoples. They invaded and they took over the UK, and that's where, you know, people are from now. So that was part of what the Nordic and Scandinavian peoples did. They were not just Vikings. They were traders. They were explorers. Greenland and Iceland were settled by those Nordic peoples, and even into, and there now has been documented proof into North America.
Adam, hold on, fuck.
I completely forgot I had that on. Anyways, I wanted to ask you what's your take on somebody that today likes like, yeah, I'm a Viking. Yeah, I'm a Viking. I'm a Viking descent, you know, and they're all about, yep, my heritage is Viking. It's like, well, my heritage is farmer. I mean, like, you know, well, how do you equate that? I mean, because like you say, Viking is an occupation, not a bloodline or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I would think that. I mean, well, I mean, like, okay, you're Nordic or you're Norwegian or something like that, you know. I mean, but Viking just sounds cooler, I guess.
Yeah. Now, if I may on that what you just said there, Sully, it's an important thing to say too. Like, if you can trace your lineage that far back, like that far, 600, you know, geez, the vapor. If you could trace your lineage that far back, and you can confirm that your ancestors' were in fact of the occupation of Vikings.
Hang on, William is a direct descendant of him.
Yes, sure. Then yeah, you can say, you know, it's like I'm a Viking descent. But if you're using the term Viking, you know, for you know, the Nordic race, you know, then no, you're Nordic. So
I didn't mean that to be divisive.
Like,
I was
no. You're right. I'm just clarifying a tighter detail, because you know there are people who take pride in saying my family and my ancestors have been farmers for thousands of years. We're a family. We're a farming lineage. You know, and while now it's I would, to me, respect. I respect farmers. Back in the day, like everybody was. So you bring up the point. You are more likely for to be of a lineage from it's not lifestyle job, basically a job.
You're more likely to be related to Genghis Khan than not.
Yeah, well,
that's true.
Yeah, you know, so yeah, that's sure. But so for somebody to say, "Oh, I'm a Viking ancestry," it's like, who am I to judge? But like, are you? You know, like, did you trace it back and find out that your great 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 granddad, hopped on a longboat and raided towns, raped and pillaged, and brought back goods and services to his village? Was he a pirate?
I will say, I will say, sometimes it's fascinating to do one of them DNA lineage tests.
Will not.
And sometimes it completely contradicts everything your family's told you. Oh, well, we thought we were Irish. It turns out you're like your family's bloodline is from Lithuania or something like that. And they've been pretending to be Irish for 200 years. And so now 200 years later, everybody just thinks they're Irish because they had to change their identity back in the day, and
for whatever reason, wars and refugees cause families to change their or to lie about their family lineage and history. Right.
My own family name was O'Sullivan. We were from the southern island. Anyways, but my great grandfather dropped the O off so it would sound less Irish, because that was a time where you would see signs, no Irish need apply, no jobs for Irish here, things like that.
And then you've got people like me, like, talking about, direct descendant of, William Conqueror and stuff like that. I can say me too, because my last name is Flewel, which is a derivative of Llewellyn. Llewellyn comes from Llewellyn the Great, which was the last king and last crown prince of Wales, who was directly related to Charlemagne who was descended from William the Conqueror. So Charlemagne being the most famous, which also means that what's his name? The guy that played. He was in The Lord of the Rings. He was an absolute badass. World War II spy, heavy metal band player, old dude, played Saruman in Lord of the Rings. What was his name?
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee. Also means that I'm related to Christopher Lee, distantly, but related to Christopher Lee. But so when you go through that, but it's also like saying I come from blacksmith blood, because my great grandfather was a blacksmith, and then la 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 la. So yes, it sounds cool to be a Viking. I absolutely agree. But to say you're a Viking now means that you would actually, in the off season or in the meantime, would actually have to, go raiding, go raping, go pillaging, go collecting slaves,
Which sounds
which
fun.
isn't really a good. It sounds
Yeah,
fun, but
I'm a Viking. See all this stuff? I stole it because you know why? They let me take it because I threatened to unalive them.
Yeah, exactly. So. And so like it is cool to say I'm a Viking, but me as someone who is passionate about history, I'm the type of person to go, well, actually,
Yeah.
you're not a.
Do you think the TV shows of late have kind of romanticized being a Viking, like the show Vikings and
Northmen.
the Last Kingdom, and like all these that make it seem like they were the most badass of badasses to ever walk the planet.
They weren't really respected in their time. They were feared, but not respected.
If you think about, and actually the Nordic peoples, in particular the Nordic peoples that there was a major issue in the UK, in England, during the time just after or during the time where the Nordic peoples were actually settling in there, because the Nordic peoples would wash at least once a week, and they would shave and comb their beards, and they would change their clothes, and they would smell good. And there was massive complaints about the English ladies being attracted and having relations with the Norsemen, because and they couldn't get, the local men couldn't get them because the Norsemen were too well groomed and smell good and stuff like that. So that's like that, them not having a good reputation at the time is kind of like it depends on your point of view. But
Right. No, I'm talking generally. Like
well, yes,
generally.
you
If you weren't their target,
everyone did it. It's just like slavery in history. Everyone did it. The British would go and raid. It happened right up until the 1800s. Look at and this comes back to what you're saying about the TV shows. Yes, they do glorify it to a certain bit, but so did the Pirates of the Caribbean, the Black Flag TV shows, which glorified piracy. So does the movies about World War II and stuff like that, which glorifies war. These are entertainment things.
You saw Black Flag?
Yes.
I
Bits of it.
fucking love that. I love that show. I really did. They canceled it before it finished.
Exactly, but the point is that these TV shows, of course, they glorify it, and they're supposed to make them look badass because that's the story of the main character or whatnot.
And it's so.
If they did, and like Aimless just made the Huns got no respect either. If they made a TV series, and I'm pretty sure I did see a little bit of a TV series, and I think they cancelled it as well, about Genghis Khan and the Huns and stuff like that. Right, where Genghis Khan wasn't. No, but Genghis Khan was an absolute badass. I mean, if you look at history, not only did he wipe out something like a quarter of the world's population at the time, but he brought together a nation of warring tribes. And these are actual tribes that were warriors. He got them together, and then they invaded half the known world. Like, that is serious. If you think of that and then, right, he had so many children, something like a quarter of today's global population. So that is upwards of 3 billion people can directly trace their lineage to Genghis Khan. And they still don't know where he was buried. Like, that
Hundreds of thousands of children.
Yeah, that is remarkable, right? There is just the only and literally the only person that has a close claim to Genghis Khan in that type of thing is Charlemagne.
I was gonna say the only empire
It's a new
on
name.
Earth to rival the empire of Genghis Khan would have been the Roman Empire. The two largest empires to ever occupy the planet.
But
Hi, Maurice.
And
what I'm talking
both
about
of them failed because they got bigger than they could control.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is for global population nowadays coming back to a single person. Genghis Khan is head and shoulders above Charlemagne, which is
Oh, yeah.
next. I believe Charlemagne has like an eighth of the global population can be traced, or maybe it's a 12th or something.
11, something like 11%, something like that. So yeah, it's just a hair over 10%.
Yeah, so it's ridiculous. But yeah, but on that note, you know, these again, the Huns, the Mongolians were you know, rapists and murderers and pillagers and warriors and stuff like that. So TV shows make them out to be a little bit more glorified than they are. You know, like what other, you know, peoples had, think about it this way. Why was the Great Wall of China built?
To stop
Keep out
Genghis
the
Khan.
To stop Genghis Khan and the Huns from invading China, like
Now,
and they say invading China again.
Again,
complete side tangent to our side tangent of a side tangent. The
what
movie
side
Great.
tangent is that?
Yeah, we'll trace our. We'll take a moment in our final thoughts and trace our tangents today because this is a fun one. The movie Great Wall of China or the Great Wall or whatever it's called is actually a fun one to watch. It's complete BS, but it's a fun one to watch if you haven't seen it. But yeah, what's up, Mr. Lurker Maurice? He said he just came in a minute ago, so welcome. But yeah, to
On that
kind
note,
of well.
about,
Well, I was going to bring it back to your history here because this is a good history lesson, and to swing it around to blacksmithing, talking Viking steel, and then going into Genghis Khan. I don't know where the switch came from. I think raping and pillaging, which brought up Genghis
talking
Khan.
about raiders and
What blacksmithing did the Huns use?
well, it would have been like everywhere else. You know, like there were. Here's the thing: blacksmiths were revered or reviled depending on where you were in the world. So, of course, a lot of Western society always held blacksmiths to a fairly that they were always say middle class. You know, like your blacksmithing was a good, honest trade, and everyone knew that that everything was built on the back of a blacksmith. However, particularly in China and a lot of the Asian countries, not so much Japan, but a lot of the Asian countries, blacksmiths were the bottom rung. You know, they were like, you know, they were. It was a dirty, you know, disgusting, you know, evil trade, because you also factor this. You got to factor this into historically. You know, you're taking an element from the ground and then transforming it into something useful. There was a very, very deep and
they were believed to be magical, and
yeah,
they were believed to be
connection with
magical and dealing with Satan.
yeah,
So
because
they
they
were
with the forge.
yeah.
You know?
There were, you know, but it was allowed because of the use. Okay.
That's right. And you also have to factor in that's why a lot of pagan smiths and stuff like that, blacksmiths particularly, held on to their pagan belief systems even to this day, because you know you have you know the god of the forge, Vulcan, particularly even with the you have the you have the gods, the Nordic gods of the forge, which you know, the Broca Inri and the Sons of Ivaldi. Also Thor being, his hammer being that magical item that was made in the competition. That there's that reverence in Western culture, and in Western also including, ancient Greek and Roman and stuff like that, with and Hephaestus, being god of creation and god of the forge as well. So there's that reverence in Western culture for the creation, and that's another reason why the blacksmith held on to their pagan roots. But again, bringing it back to Vikings, they weren't, and people have, and the Nordic peoples, they weren't above taking what they needed. They would go and, if they couldn't buy it, then they would take it. They would go on a raid. And it's very well true that people can trace their lineage back to being a Viking as well as a farmer, because you could be both. You could be a farmer and then go on a Viking and then come back and keep farming. People also, but I also find a lot of people that there's that 50-50 split of people that are proud to be Vikings, in the sense of you got people that really look into history and go, hey, Vikings had a very egalitarian society. Women could own property and they could run the household and they could divorce their husbands and all that type of stuff. And then you have the other half, which is, unfortunately, being someone that's Nordic pagan himself. You have the other half which looks at it and goes, white power and all that type of stuff. And a lot of, particularly because of the Second World War Germans, there's a lot of symbolism that has been co-opted by that sector of society, including the German Nazi Party and their supernatural searchings that link in with, unfortunately, that side of things. But I want so those that are actually Norse pagan and have a strong view of the past know that the Nordic people, and there were, and here's the thing, it's going to surprise a lot of people, there were people that would come from the Middle East and from North Africa, and so dark-skinned and black, that would come up and either as slaves or whatnot, or freed slaves, or would come up as traders and settled in Scandinavia and would become part of the community. And then they too would go a Viking. So being a Viking was a multicultural thing in a time where people kind of go, wow, okay. Because like I said, there are Nords buried in Africa and in the Middle East, and vice versa was true. So, sorry, you're about to say something, Sally. I saw that.
Oh, I was going to let you finish. But
I was going to say there is a little bit of fact. If anyone's ever seen the Antonio Banderas movie, The 12th Warrior, there is a little bit of fact in that movie.
13th Warrior.
So
13th Warrior, that's it.
Jack Prynes brought up the as a gamer, I am quite surprised at the wonderful Nordic history lesson that comes with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It opened my eyes to who the people were, the subset that were Vikings, and the reasons that Nords immigrated. It wasn't for warmer climates, but due to socioeconomic structure, and that is separate from the game itself. I haven't even played the game yet. I don't know anything about the game, but I wonder if that socioeconomic structure was similar to like current day mafia structure, where somebody's the boss and you owe the boss so much money every given time period. How you get that money is irrelevant, and if you're not making that money, the boss is going to make your life harder. So it's just like they were encouraged to go out raiding and pillaging because they owed a certain amount of tribute up the food chain every month or fortnight or whatever. Just musing and wondering. I don't even know.
It's partially that. It's also, that's just tax. But it's also the same reason why anyone emigrates or discovers. There's a certain group of people that get a kick out of wanting to travel around and find something new. There's people that see the economic value in settling somewhere new. There's people that want to get away and actually, who, think about it this way. The Nordic lands had been settled for thousands of years at that stage. By them moving to new lands, they get access to new lands and they can build a new farm and a legacy for themselves. Same reason as why, in the 16th, 17th and 18th century, people moved from Europe to the US, and then people moved from, Europe to Australia, that opportunity to create something that they wouldn't get where they had. So there's a variety of reasons why people moved. But yeah, there's but like, and look, one thing that I've always loved about, and the Assassin's Creed games are good in that, in the sense that there are historically accurate parts, and there's even historically plausible parts. There's a lot of the games, but of course that's because they're a game, that are just fantastical. Like jumping off a building into a pile of hay. If you ever tried that in real life, you'll break every bone in your body and likely end up dead. But so there are fantastical elements to the game, but the thing that a lot of people were attracted to about the Valhalla games, the Assassin's Creed games, is because of their historical accuracy. You can go back and explore long dead civilizations, long dead towns with the information that we have available to us nowadays. It might not be 100% accurate, but yeah. So. Well, Paul, and Paul just said the Vikings were warriors, not race. They weren't even warriors. They were literally pirates. That's what they did. They got on a boat. They didn't do ship-to-ship warfare because at that stage it was a little bit hard. That's even true for the ancient Greeks and the Romans and all that type of thing. But they would go travel and see a town, pull up, get out, go raid the town, do what they need to do, bring all the stuff that they would capture back to the boat, and then sail off back home or sail off to the next place to do the same thing. It was an occupation. It was a short-term occupation, but it was an occupation all the same.
But
it's like it was literally piracy.
The next step to hunter-gatherer, pirate.
Yeah, hunter-gatherer, raider. Yeah, they were raiders.
For the term privateer.
It was a mix between the two. Yeah, privateer.
Privateers, buccaneers, and pirates were three different things.
Yes.
A pirate had no loyalty to any nation. A privateer was basically a pirate, but who was sanctioned by the ruling party of a particular nation. So you could be a privateer for England, and Spanish and French would consider you pirates, or you could be a privateer for the Spanish, or you could be a privateer for a French. And there's certain pirates out there that actually did it for different nations depending on the situation they were in.
I found that interesting. Just because what it requires to be a privateer is a letter of marque. That is the letter from the leader of the government of whatever country you're privateering for that makes you quote unquote legal. Do you know who the last U.S. president was to issue letters of marque?
It was Hoover during the Second World War. Someone during the Second World War, because I know there were privateers during the Second World War.
No, you're not even close. Barack Obama was the last president to issue letters of marque for privateers.
Mm-hmm. There you go. I was going to say, I know there's been privateers, up until recently, because it's particularly useful when going. It's basically if you're a privateer, you're a mercenary. That's as simple as it goes.
But with a boat,
so it's a mercenary. It's a naval mercenary as a privateer.
I'll do that with my kayak.
Yeah,
so, I'm coming for you.
So that is the issue on Viking steel. There is, for all intents and purposes, no such thing. It comes from.
I saw your DM in Discord. How you doing?
Good at what now?
And then. Yeah, and Shannon Long just said life goal is to make an Ulfbert. Richard Führer from Door County Forge Works did a documentary on how the metal was possibly created. And look, even if you make an Ulfbert out of pattern welded steel, that's okay. the best thing about the techniques that we use nowadays, the only thing that is different is the quality of the base metals. If we use high quality, steel, steel nowadays is the highest quality that's ever been in history, bar none. So if you do pattern welded steel, it's going to be overall a better, or even if you just use mono steel, it's going to be an overall better steel. As long as you could do all 100% original techniques, it would still be an awesome thing. I mean, I like Ulfbert, and before in the pre-stream, we had a chat about mythical swords, and I had a chat about we had a chat about Excalibur, and we're talking about the period which, Sally talked about Excalibur in the Valerian Steel episode. Of course, that half that episode was tongue in cheek, but I mean, there were certain facts about when the Excalibur was done up in the 1100s. But research has proven, we've talked, if Excalibur was a real sword, the 1100s was at the end of the migration period during the Viking age, the so-called Viking age. So if you've ever seen a Viking sword or a Nordic, a Scandinavian or migration period sword with the really stubby handles and the blocky guards, and as it was a single-handed weapon to be used with a shield, at best, that's what Excalibur would have looked like. Had Excalibur, and the stories have existed for hundreds of years beforehand, if the Excalibur had existed, had been from the time of the Romans, worst case scenario, the original Excalibur was a Roman Spartacus. So this picture that everyone has in their heads of this long sword, two-handed
great sword, yeah,
is completely incorrect. So. And we have to, and that's the thing. Popular culture and the way things have been depicted, even insofar as Viking steel has been shaped by movies and popular culture. Viking steel wasn't a thing because they traded for it. Go ahead, Sally.
Oh, I was going to say, Yamez, can you pull up from the podcast thread last week, or the picture of the
Excalibur
sword? No, the picture of the swords, the one with all the Valerian steel swords. I wanted to point out the difference between how Excalibur is depicted versus how it actually probably looked.
Yep.
Because there's a fair representation of the difference therein. Yep, that one right there. Okay, down. The down. Keep going. No, that's Excalibur. Keep going down. It's the next one. It's got the 5 great swords or whatever. Okay, there you go. So
right. You're way behind me. All right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I forgot. I'm 15 seconds behind.
Widow's Wail,
it's the one with 5 swords on it.
Yeah.
All right. So the Excalibur in movies is depicted a lot like Heartsbane, right there. It's a big great sword, a 2-handed thing, and actually Ice isn't on here, and neither is Needle. But so it was probably Excalibur would have been designed more like Oathkeeper right here in design, only like half the size maybe. So yeah, it wouldn't have been a big old like Heartsbane right here. This is like a claymore. This is very similar in design and size to a claymore, and this is about the right design, but probably maybe 1/3 bigger than Excalibur would have actually been, something like that. That's kind of the way I see it in my head.
If you've ever actually seen a migration or Viking sword, and I do that in inverted commas, if you've ever seen a Viking sword, that's roughly what a Excalibur should have looked like, at best, because that's the way it was.
Yeah, that one
I encourage-
there that you just had for a second there that said winter is coming, that was ice. That was kind of the one I was looking for, but I didn't have a picture of it, so oh well.
Mm.
But
I
yeah.
will mention this just to clarify some comments and statements with the letters of marque in from Obama and such. It was not authorizing Somali pirates to seize the vessels of Somali pirates. It was authorizing, uh, well, I guess it would be,
Blackwater.
yeah, not Somali pirates to
It was
seize
authorizing U.S. government contractors, like people that aren't U.S. government but are paid by the government, that they can go out there and take what they want.
Yeah, not
and not be like tried for it.
Yeah, with the assumption that they were going to go after the Somali pirates.
Right. Well, no, the letters of marque were specific. I mean, like they couldn't just seize anything they wanted. There was a definition of what was considered to be seizable stuff. Kind of like right now, like anybody that finds a Russian a yacht from a Russian oligarch. I mean, like anybody on Earth. I mean, basically, that's where it's at now. Can seize that and claim it as their own. If you can take it over, you can have it.
Yeah,
and
I'm getting my kayaks out.
And that's the thing about, and that's always been true about letters of marque for privateers. It's the reason why a lot of pirates, particularly during the golden age of piracy, ended up on the wrong side because they would accidentally attack the wrong ship, or they would attack a ship that they kind of just go, oh well, I'm not making enough from just attacking the Spanish. Screw it, I'll attack everyone, or I'll attack the French as well. The French are currently in, an alliance with the British against the Spanish. So that went against the letter of marque.
Say something for the pirate episode. Come on now.
Actually, we should probably do that at some stage. But yes, another comment I wanted to make about the movies is my wife hates watching any movie with blacksmithing or sword fighting in it with me. Hates it because I'm involved in it. Yeah, I'm going to critique it, and it's also like we watched the start of the first Pirates of the Caribbean the other night, and like watching Will Turner, it's kind of like that. Just the whole first scene, it was like, it just made me growl. And then like he pulls that sword out of the forge that's all handled, and it's kind of like, no blacksmith would ever stick a sword back in the forge after he's put a freaking handle on it. That makes no sense.
Not to mention sword fighting with a red hot sword.
Yes, and then and just
Disney, why you so silly?
Yeah, then the sword flash just dropped. It was just like, and yeah. My missus literally said, "You're going to turn around and critique." What
about using wood cogs to break a chain?
That surprisingly, depending on what it's made of, and think about
it,
depending on what it's made of. Yeah, but what type of wood? Oak, hickory. What type of wood? Particularly a very dense, very hard wood, right? And depending on the weight, it is feasible. If they were wrought iron chains, particularly soft wrought, and it's feasible. It might not be 100%, but it's feasible.
Oh, all right.
It is more acceptable to me than sword fighting with a sword with a full handle that he's just pulled out of the forge. That's just. But yeah. Anyway,
with that, shall we?
Say we've got. Holy crap! It's an hour and a half. Wow, long episode.
With that, shall we? I'll just okay. We're moving on to final thoughts. On whatever subject you choose of the myriad that we went over today. Let's move on to our final thoughts. Who wants to go first? Don't everybody jump at once.
Well, I've spoken for most of this episode, and my final thoughts is going right back to the start, guys. If you're having issues, if you're feeling down, maybe you're feeling overly happy. Sometimes that's a symptom of something not being quite right too.
Yep.
I would much rather you. I would much rather you say, "Hey, something's up," and go talk to a doctor, right? A little bit uncomfortable, yeah. I'd much rather that than be talking about you in days to come as what a great person this person was. I wish I knew something was wrong. Have a chat to someone, have a talk, send us an email, impracticalblacksmiths@gmail.com. Send us an email, reach out to someone else in the community, someone you don't know. That's the wonderful thing about therapists. You don't know them. They can't judge you because they don't know anything about you. They're there to listen and to come up with coping mechanism for you. So yeah, guys, reach out, talk to someone if something's not right. We're not going to judge you. Everyone has their own things. Hey, we have our own things. Now, I have better things to do with my time than judge you about how you got thought. I will happily listen to what's going on, but I'm not going to say, hey, well, what a weirdo for having emotions. I'm never going to do that. I have emotions, and mine are very complex in themselves. So yeah. Call someone, have a chat if you need to, and we really do appreciate each and every one of your presence.
All right. Well, and mine is going to go kind of the kind of in the same direction. It's I know Adam can sit here and say, "Hey, if something's bothering you, need to call somebody to have a chat." But we all know just as well as anybody that when something's bothering us, we don't want to talk to anybody. We want to sit and we want to figure it out who we are. We want to figure it out ourselves, and we want to handle the situation. And we don't want anyone else to see our vulnerabilities. We don't want anybody else to see our weaknesses. And that's a failing of I would say our upbringing. I think. I mean, that's just the way for most of us. I mean, we're all kind of in the same age group, give or take. Um, we don't want to let anybody in. Our troubles are our own, and it's nobody else's problem. It's not our right to put those troubles off onto somebody else. But I'm here to say, do as I say and not as I do. When you get in that spot, call somebody. I mean, like, I often feel like I've got nobody to talk to. I've got nobody to call. There's nobody understands. And so I got to figure this out on my own. And I struggle with that every day. I struggle with that every day that I'm walking this path by myself. And that's really tough, but I get through it. And so, yeah, I'm out.
Yep.
Okay, so before you go into your final thoughts there, Yamas, I'm not letting you steal it off me again. So, thanks for watching, everyone. You can find Yamas on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find Alex at Transcendental Artist Studios on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can find me, Adam, at Speargrass Forge on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget, if you have any suggestions for Tool of the Week, Metal of the Week, or any other topic, you can leave it under hashtag Middle of the Week in the YouTube community chat and Discord, or you can email us at impracticalblacksmiths@gmail.com. If you have found us on Anchor, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and Google Podcasts, we upload every Wednesday, or you can join us live every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's currently 12:30 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time, Monday morning. But check that against your local time and you can find us on Island Metal Forward YouTube channel. Finally, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to leave us a star rating. We really do appreciate your support. For those of you that are already leaving, good night, and we'll catch us all next time. And finally, over to you, Yamas.
My final thoughts are, well, as usual, big thanks to everybody who makes this show what it is. Big thanks to Alex. Big thanks to Adam. I could not do this without them. Big thanks to all the channel supporters, the regulars, the channel members, and all of you guys in here. couldn't do it without you. Thank you. As for topics, man, there's so much to unpack, so much to consider. uh, you're not alone, and we as a community can overcome. You know, uh, even if it is, like everybody says, just reach out, and discuss something with somebody. You know, um, even if it's just a sounding board, even if it's just typing to the ether. Um, yeah. Um, y'all have a wonderful day. As for the question of what I'm going to be doing tonight, I am not certain. I have an idea now that I'm on a propane forge right now. I can do some stuff that I haven't, that I've been putting off, and we'll see what happens. You'll have to tune in at 6 p.m. tonight to find out. And yeah, y'all have a wonderful one, and I will chat with you. We will chat with you later.
Bye.
Bye. I don't know why everybody's laughing. Bye.